This is a presentation of Northeast Streaming Sports.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Mac, Jack, and Jim football, pro football Sunday review. I'm not sure what the name of the team. It's no longer this Sunday in sports. We're talking about some football now, and we are going to get hot right away.
Yeah.
We're on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, and Roku TV as part of the Northeast Streaming Sports Network. Everybody, we got Mac, Jack, and Jim. I'm Jamie Pags, the Philly sports guy. What's going on, guys?
Just as always, big day and big week in sports. There's something going on all the time.
Yes. Craziness. Hey, the world went crazy this week, at least in pro football. Let's start off right away because I've got we mentioned it real quickly off the air, and I actually have stuff to say about this one. Let's start with the practice heard around the world. The two Super Bowl team got together and had a week-long practice, and Aaron Donald decided that he wanted to play bop it, instead of football, and started going crazy with a helmet. And I'm going to start off right here with Jim. Obviously, I'm assuming that people are going to know what happened, that they saw the video at this point. If you've been on Twitter or ESPN, you know what exactly it is that we're talking about. I want to start with you first because obviously you're the only one here that's actually played in the NFL.
What's interesting is it's not uncommon. You would think it'd be uncommon in joint practices. It's not really that uncommon because when we practice against the Raiders all the time or with the Cowboys, these things happen. Things happen all the time. Guys are, there's a bunch of alpha dogs out there, and that's just the way they are. But you also got to be smart. I mean, you could take somebody's career. You hit them in the face. If their helmet's off, you're supposed to stop. And you hit somebody in the face or with a helmet, that becomes an assault. So you got to be careful about that. But those things, there's always fights in joint practices, no matter where you play at.
Fights are one thing. But how he was swinging that helmet, first off, the fact that he had a Bengals helmet in his hand is first and foremost. That's problem number one. Problem number two, the way he was swinging that helmet, he connected 3 times. The NFL is doing so much right now to try to protect these guys' heads that they got the big Q-tips on their head. You know what I mean? And now you got Aaron Donald swinging. He connected on 3 different shots. When he got pushed to the ground, he got up, and he looked like he was ready to swing it a 4th time.
Yeah.
And I tell you, John Runyon better jump on this in a big way. I suspect that this guy is going to get suspended. He should get suspended for 4 to 6 games.
How do you suspend? Doesn't have jurisdiction over practices. That's why. Now, games, yes, but practices, they don't have any jurisdiction over practices. They could see the film, but they can't do anything. There's no standing behind it, and that's the problem you have. They don't do that. They're hoping it goes away, but they're not going to do anything. I've been in games where I've seen guys rip off helmets and pop the guy in the head. I mean, but they can find you for that, and they do, but they're not in practice.
You had Myles Garrett go for 4 games.
That was against Mason Rudolph. And it was in the game.
I just want to go back to the Myles Garrett thing very quickly. Myles Garrett never should have gotten a 4-game suspension. Mason Rudolph was coming at him. If Mason Rudolph wasn't coming at him, maybe he doesn't swing the helmet altogether. But someone's coming at you, you react. Okay, you react, and Mason Rudolph got off without any type of suspension. I believe Mason Rudolph never said what Myles Garrett accused him of saying, that Myles Garrett just made it up. But the point is, Myles Garrett shouldn't have gotten a 4-game suspension. And if he was going to get a 4-game suspension, Mason Rudolph should have shared in the responsibility because he was coming at Myles Garrett. But with that said, yesterday, guys, okay, and Jim could comment to this, I watched some of the Hard Knocks, an old episode with the Detroit Lions. For some reason, I like Dan Campbell, a real tough guy. These guys were talking the type of trash that I would never imagine. Jim lived it. And this is just a scrimmage. Shut your darn mouths and just play the game.
Doesn't work that way, Jack.
They're putting one another down. That's what leads to these things, the helmet swinging. If they just keep their darn mouth shut, no one would lose it.
Here's what you got to understand is Pags, we've talked about this before. When you go to a game, Pags tries to irritate the other team.
And he succeeds.
They can find weaknesses in you. If they can find something in your shield to get you distracted, that's what it's going to do. I'm just telling you, that's just reality. That's how pro football is. It is, we see the end product, but getting prepared for a game, this is different. When you practice, sometimes days in practice, I've been told, and I can't say who, that sometimes we start fights just to get the blood.
Just to get things incited, just to get things to get people.
I'm not saying that Aaron Donald was right, but he's not going to get suspended for it. I'm just telling you.
Well, they had to cancel the rest of practice after this. That they couldn't get it organized again to get back together. So, I mean, it was and the fact that you're saying that the NFL has no jurisdiction over this is actually a bigger problem then, because if they have the jurisdiction enough to make everybody put on the Q-tips, then how is it that they don't have enough jurisdiction that say that to be able to review this tape, to be able to say, okay, this is something that is really with all of the protections that they're putting on with the CTEs and everything, and somebody to blatantly go out and swing a helmet. He connected at least two specific times with a guy's head where you saw the thing bounce back up again. So, I mean, that's actually a really big deal. And ultimately,
reportedly, he's done this before in his own practices. They said that he has done this before. I've known guys that are in the Hall of Fame that were like that too. Mm-hmm. They would get to that point where they weren't taking it anymore. I don't know the whole story behind, but that's just the reality of it. And you got to understand, they might want to make this a little bit safer and they want to make it less aggressive. But some guys, that's why he's the best tackle in the league. And I'm not defending him. I'm just telling you the truth. He's got to have an edge. Those guys are edge guys. And if you push them to a certain extent, that's how they're going to react.
The Bengals have to assume some responsibility, I'm sure. Would you agree, Jim, Aaron Donald being the face of the LA Rams, and he is the face of the LA Rams more so than Cooper Kupp and Matthew Stafford. He's a marked man, Aaron Donald.
Yeah.
So the Bengals
every game.
To take Aaron Donald down, you take him down, you're taking basically the whole team down. Yeah. But he, as the leader, isn't going to put up with anything. He has to show his guys we're in control, we're the bosses. So that's where the emotion.
No question. No question. But Pickles makes a good point. I don't think this is an NFL thing. This is what he said is right. It's left to the GM and the Rams. It's not the owners. It's the GM.
Why would the Rams say, you know what? Okay,
they're not going to suspend them.
Don't do that again. Don't do that again.
They're not going to suspend them. What they'll do is fine them. And they'll keep it internal. Nobody will know about it. I'm just telling you.
They'll make the fine up to him where he's not going to have to pay it.
No, he'll pay it.
Oh, yeah, he'll pay it. And then they'll throw in a bonus clause where he could get the money right back.
Yeah, let's. I got Keith in the background over here. Let's bring him in and have him weigh in on this a little bit.
Hey guys.
Hey Keith, how are you?
Good morning. Everything's a little heated already. I'm glad to come into the middle of this.
You know, it's been a heated week all week long.
On after Jack.
It has. You know, I find myself agreeing with Jim. I've said this a couple of times to some of the people that have reached out to me that watch my show and some of the comments I've made. I haven't commented a lot. I will on today's show. I agree with Jim. If this had happened in a game, then the NFL could take precedent. But this is a practice. The team's going to be in control of this, and he's not going to get any time. He's going to get a fine. I'm not saying that's right or wrong either. And if this had happened in a regular season game, he definitely gets suspended, I think. But he's not going to. He's just not.
Mm-hmm.
And, we don't know. Jim mentioned this has happened before with him in practice. It's probably happened with other guys in practice. We haven't always had the access to practice films the way we have today and see these things that happen. Cell phone videos and everything else. I guarantee you there's been worse things that have happened in NFL practices than this.
Actually, not for nothing, I know in Eagles practice, you're not allowed to even have your phones out. So I'm surprised that anybody got this. And that's why it was such a grainy, weirdo film, because they kept putting the phone down because they weren't really supposed to have it out in the first place. So there's a lot of different things here that were in play that kind of created this whole type of situation, because you don't see anything that happened beforehand. You only see the scuffle, and then you start seeing the swinging of the helmet. So
if the NFL does anything here, they might address the fact that maybe they'll do away with these joint practices, which I don't know is a good idea or a bad idea.
No, that's not a good idea.
I think joint practices, right? I think it's good for the teams, but
you get tired of hitting your own guys.
Well, and the NFL is actually moving more towards these joint practices as they start to work out all of the details to move to an 18-game schedule, which is probably 2-3 years away. It's not going to happen real quick. They're going to have week-long, they're going to actually create these 10-day practices almost, where these teams are going to be able to go for 2 weeks, where it's not just 2 practices. They're going to have 3, 4, 5 practices together, and then two preseason games.
Yeah,
where you're going to see you're going to be able to practice with the team, but you're going to be scrimmaging against another team, a preseason game against another team, and they're going to push this because it's the way of getting themselves ready for an 18-game schedule.
That's right.
I agree.
It's hard to control because when you have so many dominant personalities, it's just not Aaron Donald, but you got a lot of dominant personalities, and it's competitive. You don't want to look at that film and seeing you get beat, so you're going to try to do the best you can. I don't care if it's Aaron Donald. I don't care if whoever it is. People are going to battle. That's the nature of the beast.
It's funny.
In this woke era we're in, the culture, it's different. But the honesty of it, football is a brutal sport. Let's be honest. It is a brutal sport.
Chip keeps taking words right out of my mouth. It's a violent sport. The networks and the league want to promote it as a violent sport. When something egregious happens with a guy with his helmet on, I've seen worse things happen with guys with a helmet on.
No question.
And they promote that, and they show that video over and over again. But when
no question,
they promote the violence, but when there's violence, they get all up in arms about it. I don't understand.
How dare they? And I'm just saying, that's just the nature of the beast.
Yeah, good grief.
Aren't the helmets supposed to be firmly on the player's head? What was Aaron Donald doing with a Bengal helmet in his hand? How did he get it?
He shouldn't have it. He shouldn't.
Right. That's exactly
it. They always trade jerseys. Maybe they were trading helmets.
Oh, maybe.
Well, Mason Rudolph got hit in the head with his own helmet, didn't he? I think, right?
He did not get hit in the head, and that's what saved it. That's what only made it 4 games instead of 6 or 8 or more. Because had he been connected, had that helmet connected, we may not see Myles Garrett in a football uniform again. So that was a big deal because of the way that was swinging.
Look back at the history of the NFL. We all remember Lyle Alzado pulling the helmet off of Kansas City Chiefs and throwing it almost 25 yards.
It's the same with the Stork. I mean, he did the same thing the Namath. He grabbed his helmet and threw it as far as he could. So
let me ask you a question. Daryl Stingley gets hit by Jack Tatum in a preseason game and paralyzed for life, and a hit that was criminal.
Yes.
And how many games did he get suspended for?
None.
It was
How long ago was that?
I understand, but it's a violent game. And again, the way we want to police the game today, every game from 1975 before, there'd be guys going to prison after every game for crying out loud.
I agree with you.
Watch 100%. NFL films.
Guys,
I mean, we can't hit You can't hit quarterbacks. You can't do anything.
You can't hit anybody, right?
Super Bowl 5, Dallas Cowboys, they lose to the Colts on a field goal by Jim O'Brien the last play of the game. Correct me if I got the wrong play. I think it was Chuck Howley. Maybe I got the wrong play, but he flings his helmet He fires it long distance. He could have hit
Randy White.
whoever. That was Randy White?
I think it's Randy White, wasn't it, Jim?
Okay, however, but the
not with
point
Chuck
is,
Howley. Randy White didn't come to 75.
Yeah.
He was the Dirty Dozen.
Yeah, but I was thinking of play that he was talking
I'm
about.
not certain.
Oh, no, you're thinking about Randy White in the Chicago Bears.
Fight. But the point is, do you consider the circumstances? His team just lost the Super Bowl in the last play of the game. So you're so forgiving for doing something so dangerous to put other people at risk.
Jack.
Sometimes it's the circumstances. Had the thing with Aaron Donald been done in front of a national television audience, even if it was just an exhibition game, it would have been much, much different, I think.
Yes, I agree. But here's the thing you don't understand. When you walk out there, you're taking your life in your hands. That's just the way it is. And you know that. You make choices. And in the heat of the moment, sometimes your choices are not right. And that's what Aaron Donald, he wasn't making a choice because you get hot and you sometimes forget society's rules. You live by a different rule out there. You're living so you can walk and
I agree with that. I mean, it's again, I talk about all the time how these athletes, especially football players, are driving on a different highway than most of us. That they're driving at 1,000,000 miles an hour, and when these situations outside of football happen, that's when somebody's trying to get into their lanes, and you just can't do that. So it's like that's where I feel some of the issues happen outside of football. But inside of football, I feel like that they need to police that, like these types of situations, especially with as much as they are making a big deal about this head. We're going to put the Q-tips on. We're going to make sure that everybody is, we're not going to do things that create head trauma. And then you have Aaron Donald. Now, if there was no video that came out, no video, no foul. It didn't happen.
Yeah.
But everybody saw it now. So now you almost have to.
As long as you play football, there's going to be trauma. Your body is going to have trauma. That's just the reality of it. We love to put in there. Are you going to put everybody in little pillow puffs things like they do now? I mean, that's
you could not wear helmets at all. This has been talked about before, right? Just don't put your helmet on and go from there. That's all.
But somebody will hit somebody and say, "Well, look at that. He doesn't have a helmet on and he's hitting them like that."
Guys, I've joked in past shows, just it's played out. What's worse, getting hit crossing the middle or being on the bottom of the pile? What about this one? Aaron Donald swinging his helmet at you, a Dominic Sue stomping on your hand. Which is worse? Dominic Sue, did he get suspended even for a game for stomping on?
Yes, he did.
Yeah, he did.
Yes, he did.
What he's doing is, could be potentially more dangerous. That swinging a helmet is more dramatic.
I agree. It is a criminal offense. But I'm just telling you, this is not the first time it's been done. Just like Pags has said, just like Keith, we have so much technology. People snuck in there. Somebody took a video of it. If they didn't take a video of it, it's just hearsay. The NFL has no jurisdiction over that. This team has to. And they're going to give him something. Say, hey, but this guy is probably going to be in the Hall of Fame 5 years after he finishes playing. They know he's an edge player.
Rick brings up a great point, right? He disagrees with Jack, quarterback coming at him, so it's okay to swing a helmet. Come on, man.
No, it's not. No, it's not okay to swing the helmet, but I'm saying when someone is coming right at you at that moment, you have a split second to react. He was swinging the helmet when he was actually backing up, like get off me, and he was swinging it hard to send a message. But I'm saying Myles Garrett should have gotten suspended. 1 game I'm okay with. 2 games even. Suspend him for 2 games and suspend Mason Rudolph for 1 game. That's what I'm saying. Myles Garrett shouldn't have assumed 100% of the responsibility.
Yeah. Let me ask you this question. Against the Cincinnati Bengals, the Giants were playing the Cincinnati Bengals. Thibodeau was coming around the tight end, Moss, hits him in his knee, and he's out for 4 to 6 weeks.
Yeah.
And it was a legal play. It wasn't an illegal play, but that's the risk you take. And I'm not saying it's the same, but every time you walk out there, there's things that could happen in a game.
Right, and that wasn't done maliciously either.
No.
That's where I have the issue. I think it's done with malicious intent. The swinging of the helmet. You want to get angry and you're at the heat of the moment and you swing the helmet the one time. I get it. When you start swinging it 3 and 4 times, that's where I start to have an issue. You should know better at this point now. You know what I mean? I understand that you're hot.
Pags, when you get in a fight on the field, you forget everything. It all becomes different. You become in survival.
But I understand that too. I do understand that where, like, listen, even off of a football field, if you get in a fight, you need to have your 100% attention on the fight. And that's what happened. So, and I understand that, but to have, like I said, nobody sees how he got the helmet. But my thought is that he probably was going back and forth with this guy. He rips the out of him, and now he starts swinging. So luckily, that guy who he was swinging at, who didn't have the helmet, wasn't in helmet view. Because if he got hit in the head, we'd have a whole different scenario. We'd have had the police come in there, and Aaron Donald would have wound up getting arrested and probably suspended for a year because of that type of situation. So that's where I have the issue with. I understand about fights, going back and forth, but when you're bringing a weapon into the fight, which is what has happened there, it changes the fight dynamic. And that's where I feel that this is different. I understand about, fights between teams, especially two teams that just played in the Super Bowl, because I got to imagine that's one of the worst things that you could hear on the opposite side. Who got the ring there, asshole? Excuse my language. But you know what I mean? Like, I'm sure it goes much, much worse than that. But those are but the moment that you start using a weapon, that's a different story.
And I don't think that was – I think he was wrong for swinging the helmet, but I understand what happened.
Wait,
heat of the moment, you don't always make the right decision. Then we all know.
There should be a difference between premeditated and heat of the moment. Now you claim, and I believe what you're saying, that Buddy Ryan deliberately ordered a player to go for your knee, right?
No, it was my ankle.
Your ankle,
I had
okay.
4.5 sacks on that game.
But the point
the guy goes straight for my ankle.
You felt
and Reggie White came over and apologized for that.
Okay, now, shouldn't there have been an investigation? And if a coach ordered to try to get another player hurt, he should have been put out of the game at least a year minimum, suspend him.
How about Luis Dejas?
Oh, Luis.
Against Diego.
That's what I'm talking about. That's
nobody was that. He had to go to asthma field.
well, guys, you look at Joe Cap. You look at Fran Tarkenton. You look at Roger Staubach. These guys were the premier running quarterbacks of their time, right? So they went after. Remember they hit on Terry Bradshaw when the Cleveland Browns actually picked him up in the air and slammed him down on his head. I mean, that was crazy.
Go Turkey Jones.
Yeah. So
right.
The song remains the same. It's the same thing in every practice, every team, every coach. I mean, Golick with the Dolphins. They told he went out and fought, and he didn't know he wasn't supposed to do that because Buddy Ryan used to do that. I mean, this is something that we've really got to take a look at. We've got to really have people in place to investigate this stuff. So that's all I'm saying.
But
real quick, Jim. Yeah, that's the hard part. That if you're saying that the NFL doesn't get to govern over the practices, that this happened specifically, then it's, ultimately there's nothing that can be done. Because, like I said, the team's not going to self-suspend one of their best players. Or no, you know what? You're suspended for the one preseason game. You're not allowed to play.
Yeah. And the NFL gets every practice. Did you know that?
Yes, I can believe that. I can believe they need to. Hey, real quick, Jim, is there any fight that stands out that you've had in practices that right off the top of your head?
Yeah. There was a guy named Stan. He's passed away now in Paris. And we got into it bad one day. And it was just, it was the heat of the moment. I mean, helmets going and fists going. It's just the way it is. I mean, then we're sitting there laughing about it at the end of practice and in the locker room.
Right.
I can believe that. And when you start hearing this music,
Where are the girls?
I haven't gotten them yet. I'm still working on how to make that happen.
I didn't even carry the extra coffee today, man. I guess we're going.
The best dressed man on the Northeast Streaming Sports Network, Robert Butler.
Yeah. Robert, real quick before we get going, Keith.
Yes, sir.
I'm hurt.
Oh,
no runs, you get into double innings, you get into extra innings, and you lose. I am hurt. I know they're playing better, but I am hurt.
Still some issues with the defense. Obviously, they throw that game away yesterday. And
where's Joey Gallo at?
Yeah, I didn't get a Joey Gallo update today, so I don't know.
We were talking about football. I wasn't going to the joke.
Well, we always got to talk about the Yankees.
I figured tomorrow morning I was going to get the whole weekend on Joey Gallo.
Right.
That is correct.
Exactly.
But since you're asking,
because they're banned from being Yankees fans.
0 for 3, 0 for 5.
I'm working my way back.
Yeah.
Joey Gallo had 0 for 3 with a walk.
There you go.
Yesterday. But he was going against the best pitcher. But he was going against the best pitcher in Major League Baseball right now.
Yes.
Alcantara pitched against him yesterday.
Yeah, I knew I had to say that because we got two people that are they're banned from being Yankees.
Double secret probation we're on, yes.
They are. Yes, they are. And there it is, guys. There it is. The Yankee press pads card that was, that I got. And they are not going to get this card anytime soon.
But I had a clause how I get it back at the end of the year. If the Toronto Blue Jays win the World Series, I automatically get the card back.
Jack just flip-flops to the Mets if he doesn't get a Yankee card. He doesn't really care anyway, so.
I had to do that, Pags. I got it always.
Hey, do whatever you got to do. I mean, we got a guy who's like, he's like the Yankees, Nets, and Jets. I figured it would be Mets, Nets, Jets for Jack, but I
thought too.
We found one former player that hates Philadelphia more than you do, Keith Hernandez.
See, again, you mentioned his name. We lost 3 people already. I tell you got to stop talking about him. Nobody cares. And immediately you bring him up, and then we lose half of our viewing audience.
There goes the half an hour of the show for crying
out loud. Oh, my Lord. He's needling me.
Yeah, let's get Robert in here.
He's hitting me below the belt each time. Every time he's doing it, he's hitting me with like a groin shot.
He's still got to save his soul, so he goes to church after the show, and we want to make sure that he gets his.
He's got to go to church.
You got to give Keith and Robert their time.
Yeah, Robert's got to go to church twice if he's Palmer in another life.
Yeah.
So let's bring up the other big situation that occurred over the last week, and I know that just because I know that we have these two guys here for just up to the top of the hour. There was the best punter that may have ever stepped foot on an NFL field now gets cut because of allegations of sexual misconduct with a minor.
Yeah. And
that's really the nicest way that I could put that. It's not a criminal charge. It's only a civil charge. However, initially the Bills wanted to investigate before they did anything, and after their investigation, they decided to cut this guy.
Yeah.
Thoughts?
Well, he is a punter, and I tell you, there's a guy. I think his name is like Stony Brook or something. He is in a battle at Tennessee with Brett Kern, and I'm not sure if Tennessee is going to cut Brett Kern, this knuckleball kicker, but he is a punter, and I'm curious to see which punter is going to be picked up here. I haven't got enough details out of that story to dig like we did on the Deshaun Watson, because this flared up over a week, guys. This is not the Deshaun Watson thing was flaring up back in the off season of last year,
right,
from March, and then a couple days later, a couple weeks later, a couple months. This is like boom over a week, and then it seems like the Bills, I don't think they had that much information, and they went on and just cut him because of general principle. I think because of what Cleveland's been put through. I think they just want to do that because they are, everything I read, the Bills are the favorite, and they don't want any distractions right now. They're the preseason number one if we were talking college, guys.
Yeah. And then I disagree with you, Pags. The guy's good, but he's no Ray Guy.
I was going to say it's all over my comments today. Damn it.
The only punter in the Hall of Fame.
He was drafted in the 7th round, Matt Ariza. I think the Bills
6th round
gave in to the fan base because the fan base was upset. If the fan base wasn't upset, I think the Bills would have.
I don't know if the fan base was upset as most of the media was more upset. I think
it was a story. It's a distraction.
It is a distraction.
Like Tim Tebow was always a distraction. If you have him on your team, as a backup, they're going to be asking the players about him all the time. It's a pain. Jim, the way it is. You don't want to be talking about someone else.
Actually, say T.O. was a distraction, but he was doing good.
The details of the story are just too sordid to keep him around. If he's not an established player, he's a punter, as Robert said, and you're just not going to go out on a limb for this guy. You're just not.
I agree.
Well, I mean, obviously, I don't know who Ray Guy is. His longest punt was only 74 yards.
You have an award for him.
The problem with Ray Guy, strongest leg, but he never pinned the team down inside the 5. He just boomed it into the end zone.
That's why, like I said, this guy is punting the football 20 yards longer than everybody else in the NFL. That's where I think that. Well, first off, you want to talk about changing field position. You're backed up on your goal line, and you punt the ball, and it goes yards. Well, obviously, I mean, you've just changed field possession, and that's the big deal, I think, with having a punter like that. I think that's absolutely necessary and worthwhile in this game when you do that, because everybody else is only punting at 40 and 50 yards. That being said, obviously, life trumps sports. You cannot do some of the things that he's being
That's
accused
what I was
of.
saying. You live in a bubble when you play a professional sports, but life still goes on.
Yeah,
right.
You have to understand that. Once you leave that bubble, you're in the realm of your normal everyday life, and you can't do certain things, and you have to know the difference between those things.
So, Robert,
guys, if the report came out, let's say it was Josh Allen accused.
Oh, Jack took the words off my tongue.
The Bills would not have cut Josh Allen.
Yeah, but
no, they wouldn't.
No, of course not.
No, they wouldn't. And that's, let's be honest, they wouldn't.
Yeah.
They would have been upset, and they would have said the right things, but they're not cutting Josh Allen.
No,
of course not. I mean, because if you have a certain skill set, you get second and third chances in some cases.
Question.
So, I mean, I understand. So, let me ask this question. Obviously, this is now still over his head right now. If you were a team that obviously has challenges with your offense and is going to need a situational guy like this, would you pick him up pending the investigation?
Not until it's cleared up.
Yeah, I would say
No.
the same thing.
And I agree with that too.
Because if
So
he
you're
gets
open to yourself.
exonerated, if this is
Oh
trumped
shoot,
up,
they're gonna be running after. He might make more money. For,
Yeah,
I would think
because
so.
he'll be a true free agent.
Yeah.
So, Robert, let's talk about that gold tie. That's really catching
Yeah.
my eye this morning.
Yeah.
And you know, with your in-depth knowledge and with all your studying you do, I mean, what are we looking at now? Are we just looking at a league that just doesn't really care anymore about anything, or are we looking at some kind of plan? I mean, I don't see anything in anywhere that says that this is okay, that you can do this. I mean, I don't understand. I just don't understand.
Actually, I think we're in a league that there's so much media out there, Mac, and there's so much details and the speed of us getting these stories now. Like, for instance, Twitter. I despise Twitter, be honest, between us five here. But as far as the quickness and the in-depth of news information off Twitter, I was just joking with my dad the other day how on this show I was getting all this stuff off Twitter when we were on the draft talking about A.J. Brown and those draft picks. Jamie, I was getting stuff from a guy that was at the draft. I should have got them from you, but they were giving me those picks. He was actually at the draft through Twitter. So the speed and the in-depth, the coverage, there's so many other outlets covering these stories that now we're overanalyzing things. I don't think the league is – I actually think the league is probably there's video everywhere now, guys. There's so much – the facility that I work at, my carrier van, like Max says, their cameras – are like Walmart cameras. They're really, really, we don't have a huge budget, but they get every little thing. Anything
Right.
you see,
You're
Jim,
right.
with the football player.
No, you're right. It's not just football. Look what happened with Kobe Bryant.
Kobe Bryant
just got 31 million.
Yep.
She gets 16 million.
With Vanessa.
Vanessa. Yeah.
And
that was a
Henry
blatant
Ruggs, guys.
disrespect. That was a blatant disrespect
but
by the first
where you go?
responders. You know, that's a disrespect for the day.
Why would they? Just because you have a camera and a phone, you can take pictures. Just like you said earlier in the show before you came on, Robert, he was saying that they probably tell you not to have cameras in practice, and they did in that Aaron Donald situation. Now the NFL does have the video of the film.
Derek Jeter wouldn't even let you bring a cell phone into his apartment at parties.
Yeah.
I watched that. Yeah,
with good reason.
But that was because he didn't want to show the gift baskets.
The gift baskets are real.
Don't get Pags just tee it up for him for
exactly. I listen. I was going. I'm going to leave that one be. I thought better of saying something like that.
Yeah.
But I mean, I don't know. I look at this as the NFL sees all these practices. They get all of the video that they have video cameras. Like they have these cameras that are in the middle of the field. At least at the Eagles practice, they did showing every angle of everything. So I gotta believe
clothesline, right? Going up and down that clothesline.
There they have like at the Walmart where they have the camera. They literally that's on a cart almost, so that they can move it wherever they want to, so that they can get a full view of everything. And that kind of goes against what you were saying before, that the NFL doesn't have jurisdiction, but they're allowed to see all of these practices. And the next thing I have is that obviously the Patriots were in trouble all the time for filming other practices.
Yeah.
Were they?
How soon is it going to be before NFL teams start hiring hackers to hack into another team's cameras? That's not even unrealistic. As far as I'm concerned, I would have one on my staff.
I think Belichick's got one already, Pags.
I think the NFL.
Well, he does now, Keith, because Jamie just let out the cat out of the bag.
Yeah, he won't get for the idea.
The NFL overthinks things.
Bill, if you're watching the show, we're coming after you.
One of his son's probably watching you.
6 guys. I can't get a word in on this show. I'm like bottled up. I'm triple teamed. Now I know how a player feels. I don't think you ever double team, Jim.
I think it's a conspiracy, Jack.
But it's kind of
We
frustrating.
have what we call the cold red, Jack.
Yeah, but why can't an NFL team, for example, why do they have to overthink it? Just let the other team say, do a Larry Bird. He'd tell exactly the defender what he was going to do, and then he would do it. Why can't they just say, I'm running a power sweep, see if you could stop it, kind of like what Vince Lombardi did.
Yeah.
Well, let them know what the heck you're going to do and shove it down their throat. You demoralize the opposition completely when you do that.
I agree.
I'm sure in places
until
some
they
people
stop
have done
it.
that.
Until they stop it.
Peyton Manning probably did it all the time. Told you what he was
Yeah.
going to do and did it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
It's
that
all-
one. That's that one video. That's that one video with Cam Newton going up against the Packers, and he like says out loud, he's like, "Oh, you've been watching the film. Hey, so watch this, ready?" And then he goes to the play, and they do the play, and they score a touchdown. After all of that, like it was what's his face from the Packers, the middle linebacker, the well-known one.
Guys, speaking of Cam Newton,
Clay
he might
Matthews.
be back in the NFL. Rob, is he going to be back as a backup at Carolina with Sam Darnold's going to be out a while, and Matt Corral is probably out for the season? They don't really have a back. Well, like P.J. Walker, that's not an ideal backup for Baker Mayfield. Is there a chance, the coach Matt Rule likes Cam Newton a lot. Do you think he's coming back to the Panthers?
That is a good question. They're going to pick up somebody. I think Tennessee's going to cut a guy. We've got a cut line coming up next week. I think they're going to search these wires first, Jack. I wouldn't get ahead of ourselves. But as far as maybe getting a Jordan Love, that he's not had a really good camp. Somebody like that, I couldn't imagine doing that.
Packers aren't going to move on from Jordan Love.
Plus, they said that he was Aaron Rodgers said that he's finally figured out the offense.
Oh, good. I thought I may have misheard Jack say that. But no, maybe a Cam Newton. I don't know. But, Carolina right now, it seems like the owner there is putting a lot of pressure on Matt Rule. He's very aggressive, Mr. Tepper.
Yes.
And I think this is probably Matt Rule's last year. I don't think it's fair this per se, because this is such a quarterback-driven league, guys. I wouldn't be surprised if they didn't bring back Cam Newton. He brings a different element than a Baker Mayfield with his athleticism.
Yeah. Would you bring Mason Rudolph? Because he's probably been gone from Pittsburgh.
Yeah, good one, Jim.
That may be a better equal to a Baker Mayfield, like a poor man's Baker Mayfield, perhaps.
Yeah. And I think his salary cap hit is like $2 million. So that's what's making him attractive to a lot of teams.
Yeah.
I'm still wondering if Jimmy Garoppolo is going to get caught, or maybe they just keep him. Because the owner said they can keep him.
Yeah.
What are they going to do with him? He hasn't been in camp. They didn't give him a playbook. I mean, what good is he to keep around? I don't.
Keith, you know how these teams are. They'll bring gang guys.
But they're afraid he's going to go to Seahawks. Seahawks are off.
Well, Gino's there, man.
They're playing for the number one pick.
Franchise quarterback. Let me ask you guys this. Pete Carroll said the reason Geno Smith won the job over Drew Lock didn't have enough time to win the job. I don't get it. They got Drew Lock in the offseason. When do you mean?
But he had COVID
time?
too. He missed some COVID.
Yeah, there's Allen. He's saying that 49ers they're trading him. So
interesting.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, probably giving him up for a 5th round pick because it's either cut him or trade him for whatever you can get at this point. And a 5th round pick would be enough to probably pick him up.
And
that's what I would do if I was.
It wouldn't shock me if he goes to the Giants. I wouldn't be shocked.
Yes.
And after the Trey Lance debacle, right, with them giving up so many draft picks and him not playing as well as he's supposed to play.
Yeah.
I mean, how does that look on their GM right now, Lynch and the owner? I mean, it looks terrible on them right now.
Yeah, but if you remember, Shanahan did this at Washington. he went through the same way, and it backfired on him there. They should have known better than that. He had the same
Pags, don't get that smirk going there, Pags.
that was funny to me. I'm laughing at that one. I like that.
He ran out of talent in March, Pickles, but yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Hold on. But Steve Carroll said he's got 2 number 1s up there.
Look,
Am I supposed
got
to
no
not
number
believe
1s, right, Jamie?
Carroll? Am I supposed to not believe Coach Carroll? Super Bowl winning Coach Carroll. Get out of here.
Listen, I hear that he says something about the Cowboys, and as we all know here, I hate the Cowboys.
I know. We already.
There's a team you hate.
We hear it every week.
We're going to hear that in a show pretty soon, probably in a promo, I'm sure.
Yes, let's bring it on.
But if you say that you think that Garoppolo goes to the Giants, I would not be surprised to see Garoppolo, if Garoppolo goes to the Giants, that Daniel Jones winds up in Carolina.
Oh, wow.
It makes sense because
I think that Daniel Jones, out of every quarterback that's out in the league right this second, Daniel Jones would probably benefit the most with new scenery. And
up on Daniel Jones, you have him going elsewhere, like you're.
Well, I'm saying if the Giants go out of their way to get Garoppolo,
they go and get Jimmy G.
If they go get Jimmy G, Daniel Jones would be a way of recouping.
Like to send quarterbacks to Carolina.
Right.
You know what Jimmy G is going to wind up? I'm making a prediction. Let's all predict what Jimmy G is going to wind up. I say he's going to go to New England, believe it or not.
Okay.
That's New England.
That's not far-fetched. I mean, if you're going to talk about him going, to the Giants, that's not far-fetched.
They owe Belichick a favor, the 49ers. He gave him Jimmy G to begin with. Maybe he gives him a 3rd round if he has one.
Mac Jones is their quarterback.
Yeah, Mac Jones is their quarterback, but Bill Belichick is cutthroat. If Mac Jones hits a little bit of a slump, Belichick's not the type of guy to work through it with Mac Jones.
Keith, don't shake
your head. Backup in Miami.
When have you ever seen Bill Belichick pull a quarterback because he was going bad? When?
Well, that's Tom Brady. Come on. I mean,
even before that.
How about Castle? Right? He did the same thing.
Castle never got pulled when he played a full season. He played very well, too, by the way.
Jimmy G's going to the Texans.
He's not going to the Texans.
They like Davis Mills down there. I'll tell you what, guys. If he gets cut, I think he's a Cleveland Brown. How about that?
I think that's my.
If he gets cut,
not
traded.
On Watson after 11.
So, I think if he gets cut, he goes to Miami.
Okay,
that's a good possibility too.
Wow, their franchise quarterback. What would he be doing in Miami? It's not a fit. Eddie Bridgewater is a competent backup there.
Pickles.
I don't think that they give a. But Teddy Bridgewater still. I mean, you still got to worry about the leg. That's the one thing I would have a problem with him as a backup in general. That's like having Alex Smith as your backup. You're too nervous about his career and his life after that. I mean, because of what was done with his leg. So
let me ask you a question. I'm just asking: if you had your choice, would you take Jimmy G or Carson Wentz?
It's got to be Jimmy G. Carson Wentz.
Yes.
Carson Wentz is not only a problem on the field; he's a problem in the locker room too. He can't keep that locker room together. We've had Joe Solden-Quito on. We've had and Pags on. I mean, nobody likes him.
Just curious.
Yeah, nobody likes him.
We talk about every week, and obviously we don't have any Commanders people on here. But if you notice, you haven't heard a lot about them in the preseason. Washington.
They win the NFL.
We heard a little bit
NFC East.
Oh, stop it!
Did you notice this?
Stop it! There's
the guy in charge of PR for Washington, I can't recall his name, was kind of protecting Carson Wentz from the media. That's a bad sign when Carson Wentz needs a shield.
And I've watched some Washington games, and it's kind of really disappointing because I thought they would be a better team.
Yeah.
No.
So I just was curious. And I know that other guy, he hates the Cowboys too, that doesn't talk a lot on the facts show.
Listen, the NFC East, and everybody is always bad mouthing the NFC East that they suck and they're no good anymore. Remember, They've won more championships than any division in the league.
What does that have to do with this year, though? I'm confused.
I mean,
We're still the best division in football.
No doubt.
By far. By far.
This year.
What do you think the chances are of Jalen Hurts hoisting the
Hey, listen.
Super Bowl
Even when
trophy?
everybody stinks, we all stink together, and it's still a very competitive division.
I'll give
so
you
it's still the toughest division.
Well,
Because everybody beat us one year.
The
Doesn't
closest
mean
to them
anything.
is the AFC East because you have the Jets who won a championship, Miami who's won a championship, and New England won quite a bit. The only team, obviously, that you don't have not won a championship.
It's definitely a competitive division because I think you could pick every one of those teams 1 through 4 in any combination. I think it could happen. I really do.
I agree.
Yeah, I agree.
So I'll give you competitive. Best, I don't know about best.
And now they're talking about Brian Greasy and his son and the Dolphins and the no-name defense and Zarka Merle, right? And Mercury Morris.
Morrow.
Right. I was talking about his brother. So anyway, the we still got to take a look at the 70s domination. When they had the Raiders, they had the Dolphins, they had the Steelers, they had all these great teams. And then the NFC took over in the 80s, of course, with the Redskins, the Giants, the Cowboys, and the Eagles.
Well, not the Cowboys. Cowboys didn't really.
It's the 90s.
The 90s.
Yeah.
Right.
But you're right.
20 years.
What's your guys' read on this? We've never talked about this before on the show. Sometimes we hear about athletes in the past compared to the modern athletes. Those Steeler teams that won 4 Super Bowls in 6 years, you put the same exact guys in this era, 2022. Are they too small? Do they still win a championship? I mean, what's the deal with them? How do you think they do, guys?
Jim looks like he wants to say something bad.
No, go ahead. I want to hear.
I think they'd be very competitive. I think it'd still be a very good team.
Yeah,
I really do.
I really do. And the only reason I say this is, could you imagine Joe Green in this era? L.C. Greenwood, Dwight Holmes. I
Lambert.
mean, Jack Lambert is scared some of these players. You see Kyler Murray falling for Aaron Donald.
That's true.
Lambert there with no teeth, looking at him.
The one guy who might struggle. The one guy who might struggle the way the game's played today is Terry Bradshaw, just because the quarterback position changed so much.
Wow. Hollywood Henderson,
rising quarterback, guys. I mean, great quarterback, but for this era, he wasn't an accurate quarterback, and that's what you have to be today is accurate. So,
and there was more emphasis on the running game back then.
Yeah. I'm not saying he couldn't adapt, but because again, he was just throwing long balls pretty much then. So
Lynn Swan wouldn't be an elite receiver today.
There's no doubt. Goes out of bounds, inbounds.
Oh, absolutely.
Incredible.
Him and Stallworth would be amazing today.
Yeah.
Yes. No question. I
Franco Harris would be effective.
Yeah, no doubt.
Guys, there was no salary cap till 1994. That great team would have probably got plucked come the first wave of free agency after that first Super Bowl. But also, you got to look at like the drive of the individual. So you say if you drop a team in one era or the other, well, are you going to give them the modern medicine, the modern facilities, the modern diet, the modern salaries?
That is true.
Jim Brown could play in any era if you gave him all that.
Yeah, and I mentioned that before. There's certain players that Reggie White would have been great now. He would have been great 40 years ago.
There's no doubt.
That's just the reality. Bruce Smith, guys like that. I mean,
Johnny Unitas, is just.
Oh, yes.
I mean, if you put him with Joe Montana, same quarterback, different uniform. And Nitrate and Lane.
Yes.
Oh my God, these guys were huge. Red Grange was big as hell. The Galloping Ghost. I mean, you can't just talk era sometimes, right, guys? You got to take the whole history of football into consideration when talking about these guys.
Agreed.
Guys,
I know that we got to get Keith out of here real quick. I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, Jack. I invited Keith real quickly because he's got his own show that starts here in about 5 minutes. So thanks, Keith, for coming on.
Thank you, Keith.
Your insight was immeasurable today. We definitely needed to hear.
TGI Sports Talk.
I appreciate that. I love doing the show with you guys on Sunday mornings, and I got to start wearing a tie, though. I know that.
Yeah, I got the
You're not getting any intro music like Robert.
Can't budget that, Keith.
I'm gonna come in. I think I'm gonna start dressing like Iggy Pop or somebody and see what music you play for me.
That'd be interesting.
I don't even know who that is.
Keith would be great with Frank Sinatra.
I'd be doing Puff the Magic Dragon, I think, is where he'd be coming in with if he starts dressing like Iggy Pop.
All right, guys. Have a great Sunday.
All right, have a great Sunday, Keith.
Bye, guys.
Okay, Keith. Wait, Mac, you said something interesting. So you said Red Grange. Right. And so in other words, you're saying, Mac, that had Red Grange played against Jim and those Cowboy teams, he would have gotten the better of them. He would have been a superstar, Red Grange, against Jim and his fellow Cowboys.
He'd run him over, Jeff. He'd run him over. I'm telling you right now, Jim would be standing there, and Red Grange would be coming down on him, and he'd do a Kyle Murray. I mean, he'd just fall
down. He would have run over Jim.
There's no doubt. Right? There's no doubt in my mind. I mean, you're talking. You're talking about one of the greatest running backs in the history of football. There's no doubt in my mind. I mean, Earl Campbell, maybe. Earl Campbell run him over. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah. No, Earl Campbell didn't run me over. I tackled him. Yeah. We met in the middle. He did say Skull Brother to me, though.
Is what?
Skull, because you remember he used to do the Skull commercials.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
What about Jim Thorpe? How would he have done against Jim and his Cowboys?
Why is it got to be against me?
Because
he's a guinea pig.
Listen, Jim Thorpe would, when his father took him to school, he would drop him off and he would beat his father back home. His father rode a horse. I mean, how fast is that? You're talking, Dick Butkus. Oh, my God.
Yeah, Dick Butkus could have played.
That guy was an animal.
Yeah, would have.
Yeah, but listen, I mean, could Brady have? I don't know. Brady's a big guy, right? So Brady might have been able to go way back when and played. Sam Bam Cunningham. I mean, maybe he could have gone back and played, right?
Yeah.
So you're looking. We got to look at it. I don't know if you want to say
Robert Brazil, and that's one for you, Robert. He could have played in it. Do you realize how big Brazil was? That is a big man. I was in a golf tournament with him a couple of weeks ago. And he was a
Dick Butkus. Wasn't he on Webster? Wasn't he on the show Webster?
Yeah.
That was Dick Butkus, right?
I'm going to tell you the area in the NFL where the players have improved substantially more, where the old timers couldn't have played, was in the field goal kickers. The modern era is so much better. They could kick it so much longer. In the past, a 50-yard field goal would be considered a monster kick. Now, if a guy misses a 50-yarder, a couple of them, he gets cut.
Yeah,
I love the look on Jim's face there. I am so excited about the look on Jim's face because obviously he knows that right now kickers in Dallas don't mean anything because they can't make a kick to save their lives.
Right. And
Morton Anderson wasn't very good.
Tell that to Pat Summerall, right? He was in the middle of a snowstorm and made the field goal. I mean, this guy
Dempsey, he had the record for a long time.
Right. Half a foot. Yeah, half a foot. And listen, Jack, you can't just come out and say stuff like that without backing up.
Booth Lustig was a kicker for the Buffalo Bills. He lined up for a 34-yarder that came 5 yards short.
Oh, right.
And he didn't get cut.
Probably the win. Have you ever played in Buffalo?
Win, yeah.
The win. Shoot. Yeah. And he was probably against that win. That win is pretty vicious off of Lake Hill.
Yeah, and Giants Stadium, they say it circles. It circles around that stadium. Right. Phil Simms, Eli Manning, they had to really learn to throw the ball on a spiral in the wind so that they could move the team down the field.
So.
Yeah. So and when I think of obviously he was the last one to be straight on kicker. He did, where they all go off to the side now. He was the last of the straight on kickers.
Mark Mosley
and had that 63-yard field goal. Obviously,
Mark Mosley was also a straight ahead kicker. In fact, he won the MVP one year. First time I think a kicker has ever done that. So,
well, the first soccer style kick in the NFL, I think, was Pete Gogolak, actually a Giant.
Yes, and his brother Charlie.
Man, I got to look up some of these names here.
And I can only tell you about Tony Franklin. That he was the first
1853 send.
Right.
So,
Right. Tony,
Yeah.
We'll bring
yeah,
Tony
he
Franklin.
started that
Robert
whole
too.
barefoot thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Otto Graham.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Hey, what a
Robert,
quarterback.
you're getting ready to leave too, Robert,
Yeah.
huh? You're not
Yeah,
even
Give me
having
the send out music, Philly.
Yep, I'm gonna put on the send out music for Robert, and then we're gonna go to a commercial break here.
Hey guys, we're 2 weeks away from the start.
There you go.
All right. Have a good time in church, Robert.
Show.
All right.
I appreciate it, Robert. There we go. And we'll be right back after these commercial messages.
I'm already.
So I'm listening to the music. I'm digging the music. So we'll be right back.
I'm already worn out.
I mean, you can see right now, without LeBron, Lakers are struggling.
Let me tell you about a team I hate, all right? I know the Dallas Cowboy fan is here, so I had to make sure he knew how much I hate this
I'm
team.
ready.
I've often said that the people who run baseball, they try very hard to ruin it.
I'm from Brooklyn. I don't have a problem saying it to his face. Oh, I'm from Brooklyn. Hey, get us an each.
Mr. Green? Mr. Green?
Yeah.
You need any help?
Mm-mm.
I just want you to know, I think you're the best ever.
Yeah, sure.
Want my Coke? It's okay, you can have it.
No.
Really, you can have it.
Okay.
Coke and a smile makes me feel good, makes me feel nice.
Be around.
That's the way it should be. I like to see
Hey, kid.
the whole world smiling with me. Coca-Cola and smile. Have a Coke and
Thanks, Mean Joe.
smile.
You know, one of the best things about being an ex-big leaguer is getting freebies to the game. Call the front office, bingo. And once these fans recognize me, I probably won't even have to pay for my light beer from Miller. Down it! I love them. These fans know I drink light because it's less filling and it tastes great. Good seats, huh?
You're in the wrong seat, buddy. Come on.
Oh, I must be in the front row.
Come on.
Light beer from Miller. Everything you always wanted in a beer and less.
Good seats, hey, buddy. He missed the tag. He missed the tag.
What's up, everybody? Philly Sports Guy here, and it's fantasy football season. And if you want me to announce your order of your draft, all you have to do is go to Cameo. Go ahead and look up the Philly Sports Guy and tell me who's in your draft, and I'll choose who goes first, who goes last, so that you don't have to worry about whether the commissioner's cheating and getting the first pick again this year. So reach out to the Philly Sports Guy on Cameo for not only fantasy football, but for all your messaging needs. I'll give you a shout out. I'll get happy birthday. I can say hello to the troops overseas or anything else you want to have messaged about. So reach out for the Philly Sports Guy on Cameo. And go Birds! Yeah!
Anyone else?
My name is David, and in 8 years, I'll be an alcoholic.
I did.
I'll start drinking in middle school, just at parties. But my parents won't start talking to me about it till high school. And by then, I'll already be in some trouble.
Kids who drink before age 15 are 5 times more likely to have alcohol problems when they're adults.
The thing is, my parents won't even see it coming.
So start talking.
Who's next?
Before they start drinking.
This is a presentation of Northeast Streaming Sports.
And we are back to the Mac, Jack, and Jim Sunday football show. And we've a spirited conversation to start off the first hour with Robert Palmer. I'm sorry, Robert Butler and Keith from TGI Sports. I love doing that Freudian slip. So, and yes, Pickles, you can get me on Cameo. That's right. I do all the different Philly sports guy looks. All you got to do is just find me on Cameo, book me, and I'll go ahead and announce your draft if that's what you want. Or if you need me to say, how about them Cowboys? I do it in such a unique way that something that you would want to save for the rest of your life.
You know what I was thinking, guys? Correct me if I'm wrong. Next week is crunch time. We have to give our predictions for the season on next week's show.
Yeah.
I'm kind of thinking a bit when people make their predictions, I think they're making a mistake by basing it on the whole last season. They focus on the team's record as a guideline and then say what they're going to do. Shouldn't we focus on maybe the last 6 games of the season or something like that? Because certain teams develop and get better. You know from experience, Jim, with one of your Cowboy teams, when you had the terrible 1-15 season, the next year you got better at the end of the year, and then the third year your team made the playoffs. So there's certain teams that maybe have gotten better over the last few games, okay? And it carries over into the following year.
You make a good point, and I know Pags doesn't agree with me, but the more you watch the Chicago Bears, I don't say they're going to win the NFC North, but they're going to be better than people think. Everybody's talking about the Lions. Watch the Bears. The Bears they don't have it, but that darn Justin Fields, there's something about it. I'm just telling you.
Well,
and I
think that they're still a little bit away. They need more pieces, and I'm not a big fan of the coach up there. I think that's part of the issue that they're going.
Well, they got rid of Matt Nagy, though, as their coach. So don't tell me there's already complaints about the new coach.
I just don't know that he's got what it takes. I think he's a better coordinator.
But the thing about him is they got a quarterback that can make plays.
Yeah.
And he can make, and I think this kid has got a little bit of that it factor. And I'm not saying he's Burrows or some of the quarterbacks there, but it's just there. Who's Pickles? I can't believe you said that. Are you saying
going to be a sleeper? That's right. They're going to put me to sleep. So if you're an insomniac, you could watch Houston, and that's right. They're going to be a sleeper because they'll put you right to sleep.
Yeah,
that's what I think.
You do have Mills there, right? He's a pretty exciting quarterback. And you still
there you go.
You still have a good team. I mean, let's not tear Houston up too much. I mean, we already
name a game changer on Houston right now.
Matt Mills.
Davis Mills. You can't even. You don't even know his name.
I'm talking about his brother, Joe.
Okay.
So not to be confused with Foreman Mills, the clothing outlet over here.
Right.
So, yeah.
Right.
I don't see Houston making any type of splash.
Okay.
The good teams keep turmoil in-house where you never hear about it. Okay, maybe you never hear about it.
That is true.
There's one case that could be happening behind the scenes that the Kansas City Chiefs under Andy Reid, and Andy Reid's good at keeping a lid on things, I believe. Matt Nagy went to the Chiefs as a coach. He used to be Andy Reid's coordinator at Kansas City before he went to the Bears. Eric Bieniemy's the offensive coordinator. If he's bringing Matt Nagy back to the Chiefs, of course, Eric Bieniemy's still officially the coordinator. I can sense Eric Bieniemy may be feeling a little threatened. Why are you bringing in your old offensive coordinator and let's say Matt Nagy's communicating a lot with Patrick Mahomes? Something.
Well, here's something that happened, Jack. When Bill Parcells took over the Dallas Cowboys, Maurice Carthon was the offensive coordinator.
Yeah.
Sean Payton was the quarterback coach.
That's right.
Like you were saying. and they actually gave Sean Payton a raise. I'm just telling you, maybe they're looking at Matt Nagy.
I look at this as coaches under your tree are protected.
That's what I'm saying.
And they
Bill
bring you
Belichick
on
does it all the time.
Yeah, they bring you on. I mean, look at what Belichick's doing right now. We're gonna combine, and then I'm gonna choose Patricia as the offensive coordinator because I think Joe Judge is just got a little bit of spoiled to him right now. But
some guys you inherit, and you can't let him go. Andy Reid inherited Eric Bieniemy, and he wasn't about to let a favorite, someone of Eric Bieniemy's profile, I should say, to let him go for a Matt Nagy, especially since the Chiefs have had a lot of success. Keep that in mind.
But doesn't make doesn't he have problems down in the college level? What he did down there?
Well, with the Bears, when he was with the Bears, he was the head coach. He didn't start off calling the plays, then he took over a little while, and there was a lot of turmoil there, after a while. So they moved on.
Let me ask you this question. Does it really matter who's the offensive coordinator at the Kansas City? Because Andy Reid is basically running the show.
Right. Yeah, he's calling.
That's what I think. And
let me go a step further. You have a quarterback like Patrick Mahomes. Why isn't he calling his own plays? You have an elite quarterback. Just help him out, assist him. That's the way it used to be. You mentioned Johnny Unitas before, Mac. Johnny Unitas was actually insulted when Don Shula started sending in plays for him when Shula was the Baltimore Colts coach. How could you send in plays for the great Johnny Unitas? Aaron Rodgers, he doesn't need plays sent in for him. Tom Brady, he doesn't need it. Zach Wilson does. Young quarterback, okay.
I just want to know how we got back to Aaron Rodgers again. I mean, I know, Jack, you love him.
Aaron Rodgers. I got to tell you, guys, you're going to be proud of me for this. I got tickets to a game. Jim, you never paid for a ticket. You haven't paid for an NFL ticket forever. You've moved your tickets in getting into the stadium. I got to pay. This isn't boxing. I pay good money.
I don't pay for boxing tickets either, Jack.
I'm going on Christmas Day, Miami Stadium to see the Packers play the Dolphins. I pay top dollar for Aaron Rodgers to see him play live. This way, I can always say I've seen Aaron Rodgers play live. Like I've seen Will Chamberlain play live, Muhammad Ali play live. I put Aaron Rodgers in that company.
See, but Aaron Rodgers is going to be on the PUP list because he's going to have to give all those presents away the night before, since you're going on Christmas Day. I mean, because he's Santa Claus up there, isn't he?
Yeah.
There should be a clause in the ticket contract that Jordan Love is playing that game. I could get my money back, and I'm going to watch it on TV.
Good luck with that, especially the way Miami sells tickets over there. Because not only did you have to buy those tickets, but you had to buy a couple of extra tickets and donate them away just to get into the stadium, because that's how Miami does
behind
things.
The end zone so I could watch the master operate the offense from the players.
Is he still the best quarterback? Is it him or Brady the best quarterback in the NFL?
Aaron Rodgers.
No. I mean, you got Justin Herbert, you got Wilson, you've got Patrick
Russell
Mahomes.
Wilson isn't even in Aaron Rodgers' league.
Oh, please. He's a Hall of Famer, Jack. He's a Hall of Famer.
No. He's not a Hall of Famer.
He will be.
He's not a Hall of Famer.
Oh,
Who's not a Hall of Famer?
Russell Wilson.
Wow.
I don't think he's a Hall of Famer.
When you look at his stats.
I agree. You look at his stats. In the last 10 years, Russell Wilson is the best quarterback in the league, period.
He's right.
Yeah.
I'm not saying I'm way. I'm just saying look at his stats.
Listen, then you're gonna. So what happens when he doesn't perform this year, Russell Wilson? What's the excuse going to be?
How is he not going to perform? He's got one of the best defenses in the league.
Yep.
He's got a great crew of wide receivers. He's got a great running game. How is Russell Wilson not going to perform?
And when Denver, if they wind up 7-10 or 8-9, what are you going to say?
Same thing. I mean, he's still a Hall of Fame quarterback.
I would vote for him for the Hall of Fame.
All right, well, there's a question for you. Here's a question for you. How much does it take All right. So if you're saying that his body of work up to this point, it makes him a Hall of Famer.
Right.
At what point his play moving forward detract from that? And I said this about, Jason Peters is a Hall of Fame tackle. With no doubt in my mind, I feel like that he's a Hall of Famer and should be a first ballot Hall of Famer. But the longer he continues to play and not play up to snuff, I feel takes him, small micro steps, but takes him further away from being a first ballot Hall of Famer. I think that his body of work makes him a Hall of Famer throughout.
Well, I got a Northeast Streaming Sports alert. The great producer of Northeast Streaming Sports gave me this. Russell Wilson is the best quarterback in Seattle Seahawks history. For anyone to debate that would be silly. It's likely to come from a place of bias against Wilson. Wilson simply has no peer, even close to his winning percentage, productivity as a quarterback Seattle. Wilson is also probably going to be in the Hall of Fame one day. The only thing keeping him from being a Canton is if he does a complete 180 and becomes a quarterback who throws a lot more interceptions, fewer touchdowns, and looks more like Mike Gannon than Joe Burrow. So, I mean, this is from people who know what they're talking about, guys. These are from the experts.
But again, you just answered a little bit of my question. If he stinks it up in Denver, does that detract from him being in the Hall of Fame?
How does that detract?
It actually could. Pags has first off, the greatest quarterback in Seattle Seahawks history. He's better than Jim Zorn. Good golly. I'm being sarcastic here.
Yes, you are.
I mean, I think I'd vote for him for the Hall of Fame, but he has high expectations in Denver. And people don't look at Russell Wilson as being over the hill. Denver certainly doesn't, because they gave up an awful lot to get him. Right. If he flops at Denver, that might actually hurt him a little bit. I believe he still gets in, and he would get my vote ultimately.
Right.
But Pags has a point.
Yeah, and that's why, and like I said, I use Jason Peters as the example because Jason Peters, I feel like he should have retired 2-3 years ago. The fact that he did not, and he's played those 3 years, and he has not been Jason Peters. In fact, he's been very much even like a shell of what he's been throughout all of this time, that he's not. When you think of Jason Peters, you think of excellence. But when you've seen him the last 3 years playing, he has not been anywhere near good. And that's where I feel like where he was a first ballot, the longer he continues that and doesn't retire, because who am I to tell anybody that it's time for them to move on? That it starts to take away from him being a first ballot. I believe he makes it in regardless, but I think that it takes away from him being a first ballot Hall of Famer because he had the last few years were not good.
But you're talking,
and I feel like Russell Wilson could do the same situation.
You're talking about a quarterback compared to a position player, right? I mean, listen, Russell Wilson, whether you like it or not, is one of the greatest quarterbacks in the history of football. No. Easy, Jack. Easy. No. I mean, all right, Johnny Unitas, Joe Montana. You can name some of the legendary quarterbacks if you want, but Russell Wilson is a legend. He's a legend now. So if you're going to compare Russell Wilson, which you should, to like Joe Montana,
Ben Roethlisberger was better than Russell Wilson.
Oh no,
Big Ben.
Oh come on.
Maybe if Russell Wilson completed that pass, maybe if they handed the ball off, one of those two situations, ultimately, the reason why he threw that pass had to do more with the NFL than it had to do with anything else. They did not want to give Marshawn Lynch the MVP, and they said let's in that Super Bowl where he threw the interception.
What the reason
was. It was a conspiracy.
It's not a conspiracy. It was just they didn't want him to be the MVP, so they tried to give it to Russell Wilson. If Marshawn Lynch scored that touchdown, he would have been the MVP. There would have been no question about it. But if he would complete that pass and they won the game on the last second on a pass completion by Russell Wilson would have been able to become the MVP of that Super Bowl. Neither happened. It wound up being Tom Brady.
Listen, I'm not a fan of Marshall Lynch off the field, but if I'm coaching Seattle, if I'm his coach and have a chance to win the Super Bowl, I hand the ball off to Marshall Lynch. I'm not going to think, oh, I want someone I like more to get the MVP. You honestly think that's going through Pete Carroll's head at that point in the game?
Yes. Yes, I think I'll be honest. I feel why wouldn't you hand it off? It was first down. It was first down. They had a timeout left. It could have not gone in, and he wasn't getting stopped the entire time. Instead, there was an errant throw.
This is one time in which I'm going to put ourselves down. We never played the game. We don't know how it is.
Jim played the game. Jim's played the game. What are you talking about?
Well, I got beat up by Rick Grange and everybody.
Eric Campbell and all of them. I mean, they just.
I played at the game. That's
right. You were a ticket holder. You were. You were on the bench. So
I'm just listening. I'm enjoying this conversation.
Yes. But do you think Pete Carroll was thinking of that? He wants Russell Wilson to get the MVP instead of Marshall Lynch at that point in the game. I can't imagine, that going on.
Well, that's bad for Pete Carroll if he was thinking that. I don't think he was thinking that.
So, and like I said, you're right. It is a little bit of a conspiracy theory, but I remember all the things that were going on with Marshawn Lynch, how he didn't want to talk to the media, how it was a bigger deal about that, and he had such a great game that day. He was not being stopped whatsoever. And had he scored that touchdown, that had been his second touchdown of the day, and that would have cemented him. He already had 100 yards. It would have cemented him for the MVP. And the fact that they didn't call a running play, they had a timeout left to give on that so that if he didn't make it, they could have gone with a pass play the next play. They were on the 1 yard line. Even if they would have snuck it in, at least then at that point, they could have been Russell Wilson that gets that.
I agree with you. But just like anything else, it was a human error on their staff by making. I really believe it was an error. They thought they tried to outthink New England, and they just got caught. That's just what happened.
Offensive coaches do that all the time. They're always outthinking the players in the game, and it's really. I don't want to say it's a simple game, but it's simple that you can build upon it. And it becomes more complex.
And they were anticipating something that wasn't there.
Right.
The only thing I don't understand, if they were going to pass the element of surprise, because no one on New England expected to pass their defensive unit. They expected the ball to go to Marshall Lynch. Why not just throw something to the corner of the end zone, or you could throw it away if you have to? I don't get that pass, a hard pass.
You make sense. We're all second guessing what they were thinking. You would have to ask them. What was the reasoning?
Or a quarterback option, right? I mean, you fake the ball, you roll out, and if he's open, you throw it. If he's not, you keep it.
Yeah.
So.
Or the Philly special.
Yeah, the Philly special. Yeah.
I mean, all of that is feasible. So, and this brings me back. I had a conversation with somebody the other day, and I kind of discussed this, and I'm going to have your take on this. So obviously, Andy Reid has never been one for things on clock management. When it comes to clock management, that's been the one deficient part of Andy Reid's game. So obviously, we know what happened in Super Bowl 39, where it was just even Belichick saying, "Doesn't he know that there's only a minute and a half left to go? Why isn't he racing to get these plays out there? Why isn't he going into a 2-minute offense? Blah blah blah." Fast forward to the one where Mahomes is in there, and Mahomes is looking to the sidelines going, he's like trying to get Andy Reid. And at one point, if you watch it, you could see, Mahomes say an expletive and call a play, which I don't called. And I think that Patrick Mahomes wound up calling that 2-minute offense, and that's how they won their Super Bowl for Andy Reid, because they were down with still 2 minutes left, and Mahomes needed to travel the field to win the game because they were down by 24 points at one point in that game. I believe now.
That was against Houston in an earlier playoff game, not in the playoffs.
That was in the Super Bowl.
No, they went down by 24 points. They're down by
Well,
10.
yeah, all right, but they were down. They were down in that Super Bowl. They were down in every one of those games that they had to come back for. But in the Super Bowl specifically, Andy Reid was still being lax about getting the play in, and Mahomes wind up. You could see it. He's like, "What's going on? What's going on?" And then went and called the play himself and ran that play and didn't listen to the coach anymore. Wound up calling the rest of the plays on that drive to wind up winning the winning score to win the Super Bowl.
Well, Jim, correct me if I'm wrong. Didn't Dak Prescott do the same thing? I mean, he was rushing down the field. He had so much time left. The referee puts down the ball.
He never handed he never handed it to the referee.
True, very true. So it's illegal to begin with. So you can't, guys, you can't make this stuff up. This is what really happens during the football season.
Because especially when you're under pressure at certain points of the game. Andy Reid, I don't care what you say, is one of the most innovative coaches that's been in, obviously, in NFL history. And even though there is a human nature to the game, you can talk about analytics and everything you want, but sometimes in situations you can struggle. And he struggled in the situation you talk. That doesn't take away his greatness.
No, and I'm not talking about his greatness as a whole. I'm talking about how it's possible that Mahomes was the one that won that Super Bowl in spite of Andy Reid in that regards, where Donovan McNabb didn't have the opportunity. Obviously, we hear about Donovan McNabb throwing up in the huddle. Donovan McNabb was nervous. And I understand that. And of course, he's the one that gets thrown with the blame on all of this, where he wasn't able to run this team down the field, that the Patriots knew all the calls and blah, 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 blah. Truth of the matter is that I blame it more on Andy Reid, because Andy Reid was the one calling every play, and he was slow to get these plays in there, so much so that even Belichick was like, what's going on? Why is he moving so slow here? Doesn't he realize that the game is on the line? And the fact that that all happened, that Donovan McNabb forever is going to be known as the guy who choked in that Super Bowl because he threw up. But the truth of the matter is that it was Andy Reid who lost that Super Bowl because he couldn't get the plays in fast enough. They couldn't move the 2-minute offense, as was common, because he always had a problem with that. And it wasn't until Mahomes took it under his own wing and says, you know what, forget this. I'm not going to listen to you because you obviously are dragging here. I'm not going to let our team fail because I'm waiting on a play from you. I'm going to start calling my own plays for this drive and win the game. And that's what happened. And that's how they won that Super Bowl, not because of Andy Reid, but because of Patrick Mahomes. And does that exonerate in even a small amount Donovan McNabb for being a losing quarterback in that Super Bowl during that final drive?
People just think of the bottom line. They forget Patrick Mahomes didn't play a good game until the end. He gets Super Bowl MVP, but they were down 20-10. There were a lot of miscues on his part. He was struggling the majority of the game. People forget that. And as I recall, Donovan McNabb really didn't play poorly on balance. That's, as I recall that game,
the last drive, he like I said, he had gotten sacked. They got up. The nerves got to him a little bit. He wound up throwing up in the huddle. Everybody's talked about that. Everybody's saying that McNabb was the one that choked. And ultimately, because he was the guy on the field, he's going to get that blame. But I'm saying, and I'm not fully exonerating him. I'm not saying that, hey, he had no fault. I'm saying that more fault had to get put on Andy Reid, where I'm not somebody who's always going to go to bat for McNabb. But as I think about this now, 15 years after the fact, or even 18 years after the fact, that Donovan McNabb gets some of the blame, but I think the crux of the blame should go more on Andy Reid because he was ill-prepared for a 2-minute offense and in the most crucial of times. In the biggest moments up to that point in his career, he came up very, very small. And because of that, the quarterback came up small because the quarterback couldn't think on his own. Mahomes was able to think on his own, and because of that, was able to get Andy Reid his first Super Bowl ever. I think that that's more of a testament to Mahomes and not to Andy Reid, and that it gives more blame to Andy Ball 39 than it does McNabb.
Don't overthink it. He's point blank better.
You're missing my point.
Yeah.
You're missing my. Do you understand my point, Jim? I mean, do you get what I'm saying? I'm giving more blame to Andy Reid for Super Bowl 39 on the last 2 minutes of that game than I am Donovan McNabb. All up to this time, Donovan McNabb has been the one that's gotten the blame, and I'm saying that. Really, it had a little bit more to do with Andy Reid. Not that Donovan McNabb is completely exonerated, that he was that he was free clear from any blame, but it was more Andy Reid's fault than Donovan McNabb's fault.
Well, let's look at Bud Grant with the Vikings, right? When he was preparing for his Super Bowls, he would bring the team down a week early or a week late, whatever the situation was, and it still didn't work. It still didn't work. Kansas City beat the living crap out of them with their front forward, Buchanan and the other guys. So, there's only so much you can do, guys. There's only so much preparation that you could put into one game. So if you're going to say that, Pags, if you're going to say, well, it's Andy Reid more than Donovan McNabb, I can also say it was more Bud Grant than Fran Tarkenton also.
Bud Grant was 0-4 in Super Bowl.
Marv Levy.
Yeah, same thing.
Why does something like this happen, guys? You mentioned,
I have to disagree with you on that.
Okay, we won't give Donovan McNabb as much blame as others have. Let's settle.
No,
on
he
that.
makes a good point. Blame. There's enough blame to go around.
Yeah.
Right.
But the Chief Vikings Super Bowl, that was Super Bowl 4. Tell me the logic behind this. The Chiefs manhandle them. They beat them 23-7. And what people forget, the following season they played opening game, and the Vikings decisively beat the Chiefs. What happens during the offseason? How can one team dominate another in the Super Bowl, and then the first game of the next season, which is very important, get manhandled and turn themselves? Sometimes it doesn't make sense.
Well, I could answer that in terms of, one, it's not as important. Two, that the beginning of the next season, one that won the Super Bowl has got a Super Bowl hangover a little bit, and the other team is itching to get back at them because it's a revenge game because they lost the biggest game of their career the last time they played. That's the only.
Do you guys remember
next year?
Do you remember when the college all-stars used to play the opening game? Well, not the opening game, but the Super Bowl champions. Yes. And I think the Steelers beat them every which way by sideways. If it wasn't for the lightning during that game and the heavy rains, who knows how much of a bad score that would have been. Yeah.
I'm going to tell you guys something, and Mac, you'll disagree. Jim will disagree. I don't know what Pags thinks. The University of Alabama this season is supposed to be absolutely loaded, a powerhouse. I think they'll be better than the Chicago Bears. Head on, they play and they would beat them. University of Alabama. Yeah, I do.
There is no way. Right. Go ahead, Jim. There's no way.
You're dealing with grown men, Jack.
Right.
Grown men who don't play the game that well. I mean, I don't care. Grown men. Just because they're old, it doesn't mean they're better.
They'll be better than the Jets.
Older men who haven't grown up as football players.
Listen,
Jack, you're dealing with grown men.
Yes, and people
and the
don't
grown
realize.
men used to lose to the college all-stars at times.
But they played, Jack. They played year round when the pros had to go to work. They had jobs. So how can you compare that? If you're going to
step in here for this,
so if you are playing with NFL rules, I think if you're playing with college rules, I think that there are certain times when Alabama could go up against one of these NFL franchises at the end of this season and probably beat them. I think that would have to do more with at the end of the season. At the end of the season, if you went 2-14 and now you were 2-15 and you were forced to have to play a college team, I don't think that you would have any interest in playing that college team, and that college team would do everything they could to try to beat the pro team, and that In that scenario, I think that would happen. If you were trying to play game one, Alabama versus any NFL team, I don't believe Alabama will win that game.
Alabama's turning out stud NFL players. They're ready to go. By the end.
We're way out in left field now.
Yeah, we are. How would they be ready to play? You're look at the college football schedule. They still got turns where they got to take time out. They still got the disadvantage of playing in a college field without the same indoor facilities the NFL has. So how can you even compare, not play, but compare Alabama to, I don't know, any team in the NFL?
And think about this too, because Pickles brings up a good point, is that you're breasting in all these guys were drafted free agents, but this is the best of the best. Alabama, not every player on Alabama gets drafted.
Right.
So you're saying that every player obviously is going to play, yes, but there are going to be some weaknesses, even as great as Alabama is.
Yeah.
And that's the problem you run in. Now, they say that Alabama's secondary might be the best ever, but still, you're playing against the best of the best.
And that's why I say at the end of a season, if you were to put some team up there who just lost 14 or 15 games the entire year, and then you're forcing them to play a college team, that college team would probably have the best opportunity to win because of that alone, because the pros are going to be cashing it in.
Take over.
Yeah,
right.
And Vince Lombardi,
you walk out there and say, "Mommy, that's the guy that got beat by
Alabama." Listen, Alabama's also going to have better coaching with Nick Saban and his staff.
Oh, here we go.
Keep that in mind as well. Over
Nick Saban left the NFL.
Yeah, if he was that good, if he was that good, Jack, he'd still be in the NFL, and he's not.
Yes.
So I mean, come on.
He's getting paid. He's getting paid
Oh,
great money.
He left, Jack. He left the Miami Dolphins.
Right.
All right. Well, so since we're out in left field, I'm going to go into the bleachers now. At this point, I was watching the Winnipeg game. Now, and I know that there's somebody here that actually cares a little bit about Winnipeg right now because they're going for their third championship. And I got a question. Winnipeg wound up scoring a touchdown late to take the lead. There was only time left for a kickoff. They kicked the ball off. On the kickoff, they did a spot kick or something like that they punted the ball kind of back. What is that play? Obviously, Winnipeg won the game because they wound up recovering that punt at the end. But what was that play? I don't understand what that whole thing was because we're talking Canadian football. That's not a play that ever happens in the NFL. What was going on there, Jim?
That's a good question because I don't know either.
All right, but it was something that happened. You had to have seen it, obviously.
I saw the play, but Winnipeg CFL has different rules than them. Did you know if you don't return a kick from the end zone, the other team gets a point? Stuff like that. And that's
I thought they had to make it through the uprights to get the point.
No.
So just a touchback is a point.
Yes. And there's things like that nature. I don't know why they did that. I'm not going to sit here and lie.
Yeah, so it was just one of those interesting plays, and I'm glad it happened with Winnipeg because I thought I could ask you about it, and maybe you would know. I didn't know about it, and obviously I know that there's a whole bunch of different set of rules when it comes to Canadian. Look at their end zone; it's like 20 yards long.
I know, and the hash marks are different.
How would Winnipeg do against the USFL champions?
Come on, Jack. Come on, Jack. The USFL is, I would think, is better than college, right? So how can you even compare? How can you even compare the two?
It's not the USFL of years ago. I mean, we're talking about today's USFL.
Right. I know with Herschel Walker.
Well, the USFL. All right, Les, we're talking about that since I'm wearing a Star shirt as well. Yeah. That the USFL has had 28 players still currently on NFL rosters right now. Now, I don't know if that's going to remain once they get to the man, but right now there's still 28 players that were playing in the NFL or the USFL just a few months ago that are still on NFL rosters right at the moment.
See, my opinion on the USFL, the XFL, even the CFL, the biggest difference is deficiency in offensive linemen.
I agree.
In those things. And when you take to the NFL, that's where you have the problem with defenses at, because these are guys that are really good. And I think the deficiency offensive linemen would kill these guys playing. Now, if you ask me about the USFL and Alabama, I think Alabama's got a good chance of beating them just because of the offensive line play.
Yeah, I don't think they beat Birmingham, who just won the USFL championship, but I think that they could beat one of these USFL teams that they aren't, that they're not really as great as, like I said, when you put Alabama and the 90 players that they're allowed to have on their sideline against the 53 that you're only allowed to have on an NFL sideline, that's going to play to some sort of advantage. And again, if you're playing with college rules, college is going to be able to do the things that they do, and NFL and USFL rules aren't going to apply. You're going to have a little bit of an advantage in being in the college game rather than a pro game.
Yeah.
And that's where I can kind of see. Again, I think that it would be a closer game, but I think that Alabama could win a game against a USFL non-playoff team.
Yeah. But here's also what you think about. The biggest struggle NFL teams are finding right now is finding offensive linemen. They're every team, because
not the Eagles. Not the Eagles. They have literally 15 offensive linemen. 15 offensive linemen. We have 10 backups. 10 backups.
Tom Brady's came back to the Buccaneers after his little hiatus, but his offensive linemen have disappeared. It's in disarray, his offensive line.
And that's a big issue.
That is a major issue. I can't see him being successful at that offense because Brady, let's be honest, and I don't blame him. He's a little gun shy because when you're 45 years old, you can be as effective maybe if you're Tom Brady as you were younger, but I can't imagine you having the resiliency to take the same hits like you were when you were 28. I think it has a much bigger effect when you get hit at his age. So if you give Brady room to operate, he's a genius. He could do great things, but he can't take the hits. And what's going to happen when no one's blocking for him?
It'll be like Joe Namath.
So, but Tom Brady has got a 2.5-second release. That's the big difference with that he gets rid of the ball, and that he'll have a little bit this year. I think probably more than most years. He'll have a little bit of Eli Manning-itis, where he'll go down faster. Not to get hit.
You can say the same thing about Dan Marino. You can say the same thing about Namath. They all had quick releases.
Joe Montana had a quick release. Exactly. Dan Phelps had an incredible release.
Yeah, and he had an incredible. What's that? Air. I don't know. Air something or other. Where
I've never
Air Supply. We're all out of love. I'm so lost without
Air Coryell. Air Coryell.
Yeah. Thank you.
Guys, I've never seen so many injuries in the NFL like, it's this year. It's getting really bad. Even the Raven mascot got injured. It's getting like a little out of hand here.
He's right when
Dallas is suffering injuries to the offensive line.
It was Tyron's, but he's always injured.
Yeah, well, and so that's why I believe that the Eagles are going to have the best shot to go far, because they have the depth and they have one of the best offensive lines in the NFL.
Hold on.
I've said that's how you win championships. 3 yards off the ball where you win those championships.
Let me find my Twilight Zone piece again so I can play it for Pags as he continues talking nonsense about
it. And last time you did that, how right I was, right?
Pags.
You remember how you thought I was crazy? And who was right? This guy.
Yeah, that guy was.
Pags,
a blind squirrel finds a nut every once in a while.
The clock is right twice, once, and every day. So.
Mac didn't really put me down for this a year ago, but Jim just laughed at me like I didn't know what I was talking about. I said a year ago, Jalen Hurts is the next Doug Flutie. I put him as a Doug Flutie quarterback type. He's of that caliber. And I think I'm proven right now. He's trending right towards that. He'll be on the level of a Doug Flutie. And with a Doug Flutie, it's good enough. You can win a Super Bowl with a Doug Flutie.
Doug Flutie never won a Super Bowl.
Yeah, but he did win some. He did win some Canadian championships.
There you go.
Grey Cup.
There you heard it. He won Canadian championships.
With the Bills, with the Bills, he did too. I mean, he replaced Johnson, right? And he ended up taking
on a
it to
big
the
run with the Bills. Yeah, Doug Flutie. Yeah, that's what Jalen Hurts is. I see Doug Flutie and Jalen Hurts.
Yeah, okay.
Right. I don't know that I see Doug Flutie and Jalen Hurts, but I think that Jalen Hurts is I think all of his other intangibles can make up for his arm strength.
Now you're saying,
and that's a real thing.
You didn't say that last
I feel that he could do well, but it's got to be the game's got to be called right for him, and all of the conditions got to go right for him. Like I said, I think that in a crazy world, if every bounce goes right, that the Eagles could go 13-4. I don't expect them to go 13-4. I got them going 11-6. But I'm saying that if they get all the bounces right, this is a fairly simple schedule, and that they would be able to go 13-4. But I doubt it. Like I said, I think they go 11-6, but I think they make a big splash in the playoffs. They wind up in the NFC Championship game. Like I said, write it down, take a picture, save the video, go ahead and tell me that I'm wrong at the end of the season when we're in the NFC Championship game.
And they'll be
Let me
playing
tell you, at
Giants
the end of
for
the
that
season, like I mentioned before the end of the season, with the Cowboys, who's going to get more carries by the end of the year per game? Not total for the season, by the end of the game. Ezekiel Elliott or Tony Pollard? I think by the end of the year, Pollard's going to be the main back.
Ezekiel Elliott will, and I'll tell you why. Because he's still – have you watched him this preseason? He's not going to ever be one 4 or 5 years ago.
They're better than the college, Jack.
Huh?
Third-string players are better than the college players. There you go.
And Tony Pollard is going to be playing different positions. He's going to be playing the slot. They're going to move him around.
So he'll be like a Deebo Samuel, Tony Pollard.
Yeah, similar to that, because he can do that.
Okay.
But here's the interesting thing. I went to the kickoff luncheon for the Cowboys. What surprised me is the size of them. I thought the Cowboys, when you talk about eras, we were way bigger than those guys now. We were way bigger.
Yeah. That's you're seeing it through rosy-colored glasses there, Jim.
I'm telling you the truth. With size, our offensive line was way bigger than theirs.
You're going to say that you're bigger than Bubba Smith. Come on. There's no way you're
I'm saying for the Cowboys now, as opposed to when we won those Super Bowls.
That the Super Bowl offensive lines were bigger. Yeah, and that's again, this is what I go back with the Eagles. The Eagles offensive line these guys are monsters. They're monsters. You look at even their second string. Pittsburgh is interested in trying to acquire Dillard. Obviously, he was a first-round pick. They want to see if they could get him. They were trying to get him for a fourth and a fifth rounder, and I'm like, no, absolutely not. He was a first-round pick. He's still a good offensive lineman. You know, he's going to wind up going to Pittsburgh and be able to be a starter over there because their offensive line is so depleted. I would keep him. I would keep him unless you're getting a first or a second-round pick. That's just me. Obviously, they don't pay me the big bucks to be the GM. That's what Howie's for. But that being said, they showed the depth of the offensive line on the Eagles. And as of right now, before the 53-man roster cuts, that they have 10 backups to the 5 guys that are, the 5 main guys that are on the field. And I think that's what you need. That because you don't want one of your offensive linemen. You don't want to be scrambling like Dallas is right now because that guy got hurt. That they don't have somebody who's going to really fit into that scheme right now, who's going to be able to fill the shoes of that.
Tyron Smith has been hurt the last 5 years.
Right, but they still never been able to find somebody to make sure that he could do the same thing that guy can do.
They can move Terrence Steele to that position, which they'll probably do because they have to have somebody to protect the backside of Dak Prescott.
Which means that they're going to probably wind up having to go with probably 2 tight end sets because Schultz isn't the best blocker. You're going to wind up having your blocking tight end on that side too.
Remember, Zach Martin couldn't play right tackle. Yeah. Zach Martin might be the best player.
And you don't just use tight ends for blocking guys, right? You use them.
No, that's what I'm saying. You'd wind up using your backup tight ends. You'd wind up doing a lot of two tight end sets.
Go more 2 tight end sets, and that's the thing. To have
just to be able to give some help on that side. That's what I'm talking about. Like, so I feel that, especially like now against the Eagles, the biggest problem that they had last year was no quarterback pressure. They quarterbacks could just go back in the pocket, have a sandwich, pick their teeth, scratch their butt, and then throw the ball and still complete it 10 minutes later. That was the biggest problem last year. This year, they're not going to have that same problem because they got bigger guys.
Let's not forget that.
Can you?
I didn't hear you, Matt.
They threw snowballs at a drunk Santa Claus too, so we can't forget about that.
Guys, can you?
I control. I can mute anybody here.
guys, can you imagine a team had a quarterback with fantastic talents? You can't cut him. He could get away with a lot. Who's an Antonio Brown personality? He goes back to pass. And he taunts the opposition. He turns around and scratches his butt for a moment.
Where did that come from?
Just because that's what I said, that quarterbacks that were going up against Eagles defenses last year had 80% completion percentage for 7 different games because they had no quarterback pressure at all. That they were.
There's a chance. Forget the pressure. Do you think there's a chance, Pags, especially you, to answer this more than any of us, that the wheels could fall off this Dallas Cowboy team this year, that they might actually...
It could happen to any team.
Of course it could.
No, not any team. The Buffalo Bills aren't going 7-10. Come on.
You don't know that.
They're not.
They lost the punt god.
He's a 7th-round draft choice. He's replaced.
He just said he was the greatest thing since...
I didn't say it. Who said it?
I said he was the best punter. He's the best punter by 20 yards in the league right now. But that's beside the point. I don't get to make the decisions on how he lived his life beforehand. Even the NFL said that they can't take any action on this because this all happened while he was not in the NFL. So the NFL has got no response to this because
they wipe their hands clean of it.
Right, conscious palate we're talking about.
Yeah.
Well, the Bills cut him because of repercussions with the fan base. They don't want to deal with it. If it was Josh Allen, they would deal with it, obviously.
Yeah, but to your point, the wheels could fall off. There's no doubt about it for the Cowboys. I don't think they will.
Especially on the covered wagon. They'll fall off the covered wagon in a minute. So,
but listen, I was surprised Jerry Jones. I thought there would be urgency in the offseason to make one big move. And rather, he just was a little lackadaisical in the offseason, a little surprised, I'll be honest. I could understand moving on from Amari Cooper because with Cooper was things that were more than just the playing field. They didn't want to invest in him long term. I was okay with that. But some way, somehow, I thought Jerry Jones was going to make one impact move, the way he made many years ago when he got Deion Sanders.
I think what's happening is Jerry still is the face of the Cowboys.
Yeah.
Stephen Jones is making the business decisions. That's just my opinion on it.
I agree, Jim. I agree.
And that's what's happening.
So let me ask this, Jim. The Cowboys start off 2-6. Does McCarthy get fired because you guys have your defensive coordinator could become acting coach right away?
No, I don't think Jerry is. It's very unusual for Jerry. He's no rider.
So is there any record that the Cowboys could have? And I'm saying that they go 2-4, out of 6 games, or 2-6 in the first 8 games. At that point, you still have an opportunity to turn the season around because you do have 17 games. You could try to make that difference, and maybe that would, like in baseball, it would almost ignite the team. And because you have another coach, a head coach on your team right now, that it would be enough of an incentive to maybe.
I don't foresee it happening that way. After the season, yes, but during the season, that's not his MO.
Okay.
I think the only one was Wade Phillips.
There's something I kind of wonder about, Jim. You're the only one that could answer this, okay? Barry Switzer. I kind of wonder. I was thinking the other day, coaches that were disciplinarians. Obviously, Jimmy Johnson was a disciplinarian. We know that. We're not going to argue that case. But I remember an interview with Michael Irvin while he was playing for, Barry Switzer. And they asked him, could Barry Switzer crack the whip? And Michael Irvin started laughing and then said, yeah, Barry can crack the whip. And he was kind of laughing, saying it. Could Barry Switzer?
Barry could.
I know Barry wanted everyone to love him.
But here's the thing.
Crack the whip.
The thing about Barry Switzer, and I've always said this, he's the grandfather you always want.
Right.
About Barry.
Grandfather can't crack the whip.
Barry believed that men should act like men. I mean, Barry's done some great things. Brad, don't let it fool you. Barry was a very intelligent person. You don't get to be that successful from not being intelligent.
Right.
He was a really good football coach. And he's done things at the college level. In the NFL, to take over that situation and to win a Super Bowl is pretty. I know he won with Jimmy's guys, but you can say whatever. He had to make some tough decisions. He knew football, but it was difficult because
like they're going for it on 4th and 1, not once but twice, and get stopped both times.
I supported that move.
If you watch last night's game against Nebraska and Northwestern, they're up, and he kicks an onside kicks. It is human nature. Some things they happen.
They're saying that may get him fired. Because that coach, just to remain the coach, he wound up taking a cut and pay to remain the coach there. And he's going to probably get fired.
Yeah. We're not talking about Scott. I know you're referring to Scott Frost in Nebraska. What bothers me is the second guessing. When Barry Switzer made the move a while ago, he went for it on 4th and 1. And then the knock on it, well, he didn't have faith in his defense. That's why he didn't punt. But if he punted the ball, they could say he didn't have his faith in his offense to just get 1 yard. I mean, I hate that.
You make decisions, you have to live with them. That's the problem with it.
Bill Belichick did the same thing with Tom Brady on his own 29-yard line, I think it was. He had 4th and 1 or something and short. He went for it, and they didn't get it because he didn't want Peyton Manning to get the ball. They're playing Indianapolis because he knew if Peyton Manning gets the ball, he's going to score from wherever he is. He just knew it. So they're telling him, well, even Tony Dungy said, well, Belichick should have punted the ball, turned it over to his defense.
Jimmy Johnson.
Peyton Manning there, you don't turn it over to your darn defense. You end the game when you can.
Jimmy Johnson always say, don't play with scared money. He said some people go to Vegas and they got a little stack of money and they're always protecting them.
That's
some of those guys go there. He said you could have big losses or you could have big wins. You make the decision. And I agree with him.
100% right. 100%.
I agree with that. So, but hey, listen, our 2 hours. This week has gone by so fast. It's like it's been. I've yelled more on this show over the last 4 days than I have for a long time. And I tell you, I just can't wait till next Thursday when I have to hear the name Keith Hernandez. See, I mentioned it. We lost 3 guys already. So I gotta.
Keith Hernandez knows how to check you. They have scouting reports on you. The way you rattle the players, Pags. What rattles you? To go after you, to throw you off.
So is that what's happening? You're getting checks from Keith Hernandez to get on me?
Oh, my goodness.
Him and Keith are like this.
And you won't be concentrating on the Met players on the field. You'll be cursing at the Keith Hernandez photos or whatever.
Yeah. I don't care about Keith Hernandez, and I tell anybody who's wearing one of his jerseys, he's just an okay first baseman in a league during a time when there wasn't many good first basemen. So that's what Mets fans don't even remember because they weren't alive when he played.
He was great at the parties, though.
Yeah, he was really good at that. And hey, listen, the fact that he had no idea what anybody was shooting up his butt, that's a whole different scenario. I mean, let's be for real.
And he was great at first base too. Let's not forget.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's great, Max back, and I'm looking forward to Max.
It is great having Max
week. Back. It won't be so great for you, Jim, when you hear Mac pick the Giants to win the NFC East next week. You're gonna wonder,
it is. Why wouldn't it be great? He hates the Cowboys. And he doesn't remember the Eagles.
Hate the Cowboys.
Right.
Yeah.
The Eagles are an
Who hates
afterthought.
very quickly, who hates the Cowboys more, Pags and Mac? That's a good debate question.
Mac, because we've had more competitions with the Cowboys and the
That's true.
Giants.
With Tom Landry and the Crips.
Yeah, it goes way
Okay,
back.
whatever. He's again just haters
There's a
are
lot
being
of
haters.
Coach Landry.
And on that note, we're going to say goodbye until next week. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you guys.